Dear friends, honorable guests, I'm Sheku Kashari, and on behalf of California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran, I would like to thank each and every one of you for participating in this online conference to celebrate International Women's Day. The International Women's Day campaign to celebrate International Women's Day. The International Women's Day campaign for 2021 is to choose to challenge, and challenge we will. Along with my sisters in Iranian resistance, who are fighting for equality and freedom every day, we will stand a clear message to the misogynistic regime in Iran that we will not stop challenging you until you are in the dustbin of history. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have a strong bipartisan support from members of California legislature and human rights activists joining us today. Celebrate the brave Iranian women who are fighting for a free Iran. Before I introduce our distinguished guests, I would like to introduce Mrs. Patty Mokhtari, President of California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran, to say a few words. Patty, if you are with us, please join us. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran, CWSDI, I welcome you all to this virtual forum titled Women, a Pivotal Force for Change, to commemorate the International Women's Day. My name is Parvaneh Pari Mokhtari, and before we begin, I would like to express our appreciation and thank our wonderful and distinguished speakers who have taken the time to be with us today, and those who have sent us messages of solidarity to support our organization's mission. Also, I would like to give my warm gratitude to you all who are completely dedicated to peace, freedom, and justice, especially on women's rights issues in Iran. I thank you for joining us live in this virtual conference. Today, we have gathered to celebrate International Women's Day. This day bears the promise of a new world without inequality and oppression. This offers all of us an opportunity to pause and think about how far we have come on the issues of gender equality and how far more we need to go. This is a day that is not just about women, it is about drive for equality, empowerment, emancipation, and ultimately it is about humanity. This is an auspicious moment to be reminded of all the groundbreaking efforts of the revolutionary women who have paved the path by their bravery and resilience to lead the struggle for women's equality in all parts of the world. We salute them all. With an unimaginable cost and sacrifices, women have led the Iranian people's struggle for freedom throughout the 4 decades of resistance against fundamentalist Islamic rule. Iranian women's willpower in rising up against the ruling misogynist dictatorship is on display and admirable. We strongly believe that the rights of Iranian women can only be secured in a democratic and free Iran. In this regard, President-elect of National Council of Resistance of Iran, Madam Rajavi, has forged a path that represents the needs and rights of every woman and man in Iran. Therefore, this platform is highly respected and supported by our organization. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I would like to take a moment to introduce our organization. CWCI is a member of Organization of Iranian American Communities, engages in wide-ranging activities in California and nationwide to promote women's rights, human rights, and religious tolerance. We aim to garner support and draw attention to violations of women's rights in Iran and nationwide. CWSCI recognizes that women must remain a driving force behind many of the positive changes we need in California, in US, and in the country of our heritage, Iran. We encourage all of you to join us in this journey. Let's come together and fight to ensure women are represented and there is gender equality within our society, and say no to sexism and no to misogyny. Join us in a united front against Islamic fundamentalism and together stand against violations of women's rights. I thank you again for your presence in this event. And at this point, I invite Ms. Shukufa Sharif to moderate our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Toddy, for your kind words and your remarks. Our next speaker is Dr. Sufti Saidi. We are honored to have Dr. Saidi. She has obtained her PhD in International Relations from Geneva, Switzerland, and has been a member of the Glovecraft Institute at Geneva School of Diplomacy. As a fluent Farsi and Spanish speaker, Dr. Saidi specializes in the Middle East, Latin America, and global politics. She has taught courses on ethnic and cultural conflict and international relations at the University of Baltimore School of Public and International Affairs at the Center for Negotiation and Conflict Management. Dr. Saidi is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee at the National Council of Resistance of Iran. It is a pleasure to have you join us today. You have the floor.
Greetings to all of you and congratulations on this momentous occasion, anniversary of the International Day of Women. I would like to start by extending my appreciation to California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran for organizing this wonderful event and also inviting me to speak with you today. On this day, I salute the women of our homeland, Iran, who on a daily basis are struggling against the religious fundamentalism ruling the country. And at the global level, I would like to mention a few words as well in terms of status of women. Women have made great strides, and I think we all agree, and they have achieved much in the path towards equality in all spheres, but there's still work remaining. There's still glaring disparities in terms of women's and men's rights and their achievement. I would like to start just by giving you a few examples in terms of what is happening statistically in this country, in the United States. In terms of corporate leadership, there are 40 women CEOs, and as well as statistically women holding 7.4% of all the CEO roles. In terms of political leadership, at the start of the 117th Congress in 2021, this year, there were 26 women serving in the Senate, and there are 118 women voting members of the House of Representatives, which is 27.3% of the House members. And also in terms of gender pay gap, there is still 18% less pay for women. But ladies and gentlemen, there is clearly a vast disparity between the status of women globally and status of women in Iran. While in this country, we discuss gender gap and also number of women in CEO roles, women in Iran at this moment are strategizing ways to struggle against the double oppression of also living under the theocracy, the theocratic tyranny of a religious fundamentalism that denies their right to their existence. In the 21st century, Iranian women are resisting being forced into living conditions that is similar to the medieval era. A few days ago, on March 9th, Mr. Javid Rahman, the special rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Iran, said in a report that was presented to the 47-member body of the United Nations Human Rights Commission that women and girls in Iran continue to be treated as second-class citizens. A month ago, Zahra Ismaili, who had witnessed hanging of 16 men, suffered a fatal heart attack, but the authorities decided to hang her dead body as a punishment. During current President Rouhani and his term in office, 140 women have been executed. Let me name a few of the women political prisoners right now in Iran. گلرخ ایرانی، زینب جلالیان، مریم اکبری منفرد، آتنا دائمی، سپیده قلگان and also let me also mention to you that there are numerous to name here during this program, unfortunately. Today, however, I would like to speak to you about solutions and a path forward. Today, I speak to you as a woman who has been a member of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, the NCRI, for the past 27 years. The NCRI is the most organized and the longest lasting resistance organization of Iran that is comprised of mostly women. The president-elect of the NCRI is a very capable lady, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi. And we in the organized resistance have no doubt that the attainment of women's rights in Iran is intertwined with the general liberation struggle for all Iranians to end the suppression and the double oppression. The Iranian women are very aware that it is in the path of a general liberation struggle to rid the homeland from this religious fundamentalism, the dictatorship ruling in Iran, that they can attain their liberty and their rightful status. Most recently, within the past 2 years, Iranian women played an active role in the uprisings of 2018, 2019, and last month's demonstrations in Sistan and Baluchistan. These women raised the biggest challenge to the ruling dictatorship. Now, the prime examples are all of the women who are currently resisting in multiple fronts in Iran, as well as women at the forefront in the Ashraf 3. Today, I speak to you as the only Iranian woman who spent time as human rights monitor during the liberation struggles in Central America in the decades of 1980s. I've spoken to women who fought along with their male compatriots against their tyrannical governments in Nicaragua and in El Salvador. They were told of future equal rights that were never realized. The NCRI and its biggest member organization, PMOI, are the only resistant organizations that have made women's equal rights and leadership a reality prior to attaining a democratic government. Nearly 3 decades ago, the NCRI ratified a plan for women's rights. Most recently, Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, the president of NCRI, offered a 10-point plan for future of Iran. Now, this 10-point plan outlines the NCRI's vision for Iran following the end of the clerical rule. It serves as a roadmap for a new democratic rule. Let me point out that number 5 on this 10-point plan elaborates on equality between men and women. It says that during the 6 months mandate, the provisional NCRI government in the future would uphold equality in all areas in Iranian society. Women would receive equal participation in political leadership, have the freedom to choose their clothing, their husbands, and be free to divorce. Ladies and gentlemen, Iranian society is volatile. The regime is struggling in a self-created quagmire of crisis and downward escalation. The Iranian women know that they can and they will attain their rights through regime change, and they will usher in a democratic and pluralistic government. Finally, if you ask as an international community, specifically the women globally, how can you assist? The answer is this: ask your governments to make any political, economic, bilateral, or multilateral relationships with Iran contingent upon restoring human rights, especially women's rights. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Saidi, for your remarks. Thank you, Dr. Saidi, for your remarks. Indeed, the days of the regime are numbered, and I believe the women of Iran are going to definitely have a seat in the future of Iran. Our next speaker is Senator Connie Leyva. She was reelected to represent the 20th State Senate District in 2018. Senator Connie M. Leyva is serving her second term in California State Senate. The district includes the cities and communities of Bloomington, Chino, Colton, Fontana, Grand Terrace, Montclair, Moscow, Ontario, Pomona, Rialto, and San Bernardino. As our state senator, Senator Leyva is committed to improving California's schools, environment, and communities, as well as creating equality jobs throughout the 20th State Senate District and California. She firmly believes that California families benefit most when we invest in and help strengthen small businesses and other job drives that create good paying jobs in our local communities.
Hello, I'm State Senator Connie Leyva, representing the 20th State Senate District in the Inland Empire. I would like to thank the California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran for inviting me to say a few words during this virtual forum celebrating International Women's Day. As the Chair Emeritus of the Bipartisan Legislative Women's Caucus, I've had the opportunity to work with other caucus members to fight for pay equity for women, expand access to childcare, help secure important funding for after-school programs, protect victims of domestic violence, and many other women and family-oriented efforts. Though I have always been active on women's issues, I never quite realized just how under attack the rights of women were until I was elected to the Senate. And how lucky am I that I get to do something about it? It is vital that we continue to prioritize women, children, and families here in California, across the country, and around the world. Among the over 24 bills that I have had the opportunity to have signed into law, I have also authored several important bills that continue to help women and communities, including eliminating the statute of limitations on rape, requiring the prompt testing of rape kits, criminalizing sextortion, banning secret settlements in sexual harassment, assault, and discrimination cases. I'm personally proud to be a legislator here in California, where we stand on the side of women and continue to fight hard to create lasting cultural and legal changes that strengthen the rights of all Californians. I will continue to resist efforts that turn back the clock on the progress we have made on behalf of all women. So let us continue working together to empower women across our state and around the globe so that we can achieve a future that respects the rights of all people and ensures justice and equality for everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your remarks, Senator Leyva. Our next speaker is Senator Patricia C. Bates, but she is better known as Pat. It is an honor to serve as a senator for the 36th District in California State Senate since December 1st, 2014, representing 1 million people living in South Orange and North San Diego counties. In the Senate, her focus is to solve problems for Californians in a way that will preserve a high quality of life. She serves as the Senate Republican leader from April 2017 to March 2019, and became only the second woman to lead a party caucus in the Senate's history. It's an honor to have you join us today.
Hi, I'm Senator Pat Bates. I'm proud to represent South Orange and North San Diego counties in the California State Senate. I send my regards to California's Iranian American community as you observe International Women's Day. Women are a pivotal force for change. We all want to see an Iran committed to defending the human rights of its people, especially women and girls. Thank you for your efforts to advocate for women's rights in Iran. I wish you every success.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today and for your wonderful remarks. Our next speaker and performer is Helena Riazi. She is a singer and songwriter of Iranian descent living in Winnipeg, Canada. She has had played various concerts and festivals across Canada, USA, and Europe. She is currently working on a series of extended plays to be released in the forthcoming year. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Hello, everyone, distinguished guests. Thank you for joining us on this very special and important day. As we reflect on our past, we look onwards to our future. As women, we have come so far, from gaining the right to vote to joining the workforce. However, there are still many women who are deprived of the basic fundamental rights we take for granted. Women in Iran cannot freely choose their choice of clothing. They are not allowed to attend a simple soccer match or participate in daily sport activities. Women are essentially second-class citizens. As an Iranian woman born and raised in Canada, it pains me to see this inequality. For the past 40 years, women have been the sole target of this regime. I have been a supporter of this movement for many years, and through my parents and through their memories, I've come to learn so much. My uncle, Mohammad Reza Daneshvar, was among the 30,000 political prisoners executed during the summer of 1988. Today, I will be performing a cover of Pete Seeger's We Shall Overcome, originally composed by Reverend Charles Albert Tinley. I would like to dedicate this song to all the women and to all those who have fallen in the pursuit of justice and equality. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. That was beautiful, and we shall overcome one day. Our next speaker is Dr. Aurora Soriano Cudal Rivera. In her volunteer work as community organizer and advocate for social justice, Aurora gained recognition as a multi-ethnic bridge builder and an inductee to the San Diego Women's Hall of Fame in 2013. Her painted portrait also hangs in the San Diego County Library as the first Filipino chosen as one of the legends living well in 2050, an annual recognition of individuals who exemplify lifestyles and embrace inclusion, spiritual integrity, humanism, and healthy living. Aurora served as WHO Health Education Consultant in Geneva, Switzerland, and the first woman from Asia to receive a UNESCO Fellowship on problems related to the use of drugs. She is the Chair Emeritus of the National Federation of Filipino American Associations in San Diego and Imperial Counties. It's an honor to have you join us today.
At the outset, I would like to thank the California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran for inviting me to be one of your speakers in this virtual forum to commemorate International Women's Day. I am humbled by this honor given to me to share my own experiences and insights on the issue, Women, a Pivotal Force for Change. I grew up in a home where men supported the aspirations of their women for higher education, for healthy family life, and for worthy community service. I also grew up in a community where women's contribution to society are valued and respected. With these influences, I entered a profession where one is considered not only as an agent for change, but as a pivotal force for change in my home, in my community, and in society as a whole. Being a woman puts you in an enviable position to raise children and to influence them to do good, to be fair and respected, and to respect the rights of others. But you cannot do this alone. For as a poet once said, and I quote, "As unto the bow the cord is, so unto the man is woman. Though she bends him, she obeys him. Though she throws him, yet she follows. Useless, each without the other." End of quote. As one of the pioneers of public health education in the Philippines, I work with a team of men and women to change the attitude and skills of people towards better health. I was a community organizer at a time when community organizing was not yet popular. I made the community aware of what actions to take in order to promote health, prevent disease, and prolong life. Together with other women, we serve as a pivotal force in motivating people to assume responsibility for their own health, to strengthen relationship with others, and to improve the quality of life in the community where we live. When I came to the United States, my desire to make a difference in the lives of others, especially within my own Filipino-American community, became more intense, considering the challenges of cultural and social adjustment one has to make in a new environment. Women are strong and resilient. They can sacrifice their own lives for the good of their country and people. I can cite many women in the world who serve as a vital force in the fight for freedom and democracy, in upholding the rights of women, maintaining that human rights are women's rights. The Philippines is very fortunate to have strong women leaders who changed the course of history through their leadership as presidents of the Philippines. I will cite President Corazon Aquino and President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. I have utmost respect for these women who serve as our role models in the arena of politics, social justice, economic development, and leadership development. I saw all this as I interacted with women, not only from my own country, but from other countries as well. I could cite so many women, whether in leadership positions or as ordinary farmers, teachers, housewives, or caregivers, who in their own right are pivotal forces for change. But there is one woman I could never forget, and that is Maryam Rajabi. Thanks to the generosity of my Iranian friends, as well, I was able to attend the global conference held in Paris, France, where I heard the forceful voice of a gentle lady encouraging the thousands of people listening to her to continue fighting for freedom, justice, and democracy. I can still feel her soft and firm hand as she shook my hands to thank me for my support of Iran's aspiration to be free from tyranny and injustice. For me, your very own Maryam Rajabi is a woman of excellence and a pivotal force for change. And it is my pride and honor to have met her up close and appreciate the beauty of her soul and the strength of her character as she uses her talent and position to change the world. Like her, we can be a pivotal force for change anywhere, at any time. But let us be reminded of this serenity prayer, which says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I thank you.
And we thank you, Dr. Aurora. And indeed, you're right. Mrs. Rajabi has had that impact on all of us women, and she has taught us that we can and we must overcome. I thank you. Our next speaker is the Honorable Assembly Member Eloise Gomez Reyes. In 2016, she was sworn in as California State Assembly Member of the 47th Assembly District. She is the chair of Assembly Human Service Committee and also serves on the Aging and Long-Term Care Committee, Budget Committee, Judiciary Committee, Utilities and Energy Committee, and Legislative Ethics Committee. Upon being sworn into her first term, Eloise was named co-chair to the Legislative Ethics Committee. In the second year of her first term, she was appointed Assistant Majority Whip, a leadership position that ensures that legislative floor sessions operate efficiently. It's an honor to have you join us today.
Hello, I'm Eloise Gomez Reyes, and I'm the Majority Leader for the California State Assembly. And I'm also, more importantly, the Assembly Member representing the 47th Assembly District, which includes the communities of Fontana, Colton, Grand Terrace, Rialto, San Bernardino, and the unincorporated communities of Bloomington and Muscoy. I'm honored to celebrate International Women's Day with all of you. Women throughout the world are paving their own paths and marking their place in history. It's great to celebrate all the economic, social, cultural, and political achievements of women. Our future is female. Now in California, since 1849, there have been 3,773 assembly members, but only 157 of those have been women. We need more of you. I was recently appointed as the Majority Leader for the California State Assembly. In this position, I am the fourth woman in California's history and the first Latina to hold this position. I know that I may be the first, but I won't be the last. I hope that seeing a woman, a Latina, run for office and achieve a leadership position shows young girls and women that their dreams are possible and gives them a positive attitude toward public service. Our state's diversity is our greatest strength, and that diversity must be reflected in those who represent us at the state and local levels. Our personal experiences become invaluable in making sure that the perspective and needs of our communities are heard, and that the struggles that face our communities across the state are acknowledged and addressed. I am proud to see more women and more women of color run for office and lead. I want to remind everyone that you all have the power to rewrite history, or as we commonly say, her story. Remember, we do not achieve greatness alone. We must remember that the women who came before us paved the way, and we must thank them. When I was a young girl, my mother taught me to work hard for the things I wanted in life. She also told me I must never forget where I came from. So I worked hard and continue to give back as much as I can. And with enough perseverance, I'm here today. Thanks to all of you. We will have our challenges, and on occasion we will fall, but we will always stand back up, alone or with the help of our sisters. We stand together as women. We persist, we persevere, and we prevail. In the end, we empower one another. So show up for yourself and for those young girls who look up to you. Let's stand together as women and empower one another. Happy International Women's Day.
The future is female. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for your beautiful remarks. Our next speaker is Assemblywoman Blanca E. Rubio. She was elected in November 2016 to represent California's 48th Assembly District. Blanca has worked tirelessly to give her constituents a voice in the Capitol, placing advocacy for children, women, families, students, and immigrants at the forefront of her work. Since her election in 2016, Blanca has authored bills that support victims of domestic violence, create opportunities for children within the foster care system, ensure our youngest students are given proper support to succeed in school, and many other bills. One of her greatest honors was to have 18 bills signed into law during her first term in the Assembly, making Blanca one of the more productive and active legislators in Sacramento. During her second term, Blanca continued to build on her success track record by passing legislation, protecting vulnerable children, empowering dreamers, and strengthening local journalism throughout California. Before coming to the Assembly, Blanca spent 16 years as a teacher and 20 years in elected office. It's a great privilege to have you join us today.
Today, we commemorate women across the world and our fight to address systematic injustice. We must continue to drive global action towards justice and equality, not only here in the United States, but also in Iran, where misogyny fuels violence and gruesome oppression. With significant cost and sacrifice, women have led the Iranian people's struggle for freedom throughout the 4 decades of resistance against fundamentalist Islamist rule. This leadership and sacrifice was clearly on display during the 2018 and 2019 nationwide protests in Iran, as well as the regime's corresponding violent response. International communities must pressure the Iranian regime and hold them accountable for detaining, torturing, and executing women's rights activists and pro-democracy protesters.
Thank you so much for your remarks. And yes, the international community should indeed hold the Iranian regime accountable. Next, we will have a short video called Women in Iran. Let's watch that. It's absolutely a shame to see our sisters' rights being violated in the way that it is being in Iran. Our next speaker is the Honorable Assemblywoman Autumn Burke. First elected in 2014 to represent the 62nd District in California State Assembly, her economically and ethically diverse district. Assemblywoman Burke is the daughter of former Los Angeles County Supervisor, Assemblywoman, and U.S. Congresswoman Yvonne Burke. Her election to the legislature makes her the first time in California history that a mother and daughter have both served as state assembly. Assemblywoman Burke is the chair of the Assembly Committee on Revenue and Taxation. She also serves as the chair of Assembly State Select Committee on Career Technical Education and Building at 21st Century Workforce, and a member of the Assembly Committee on Accountability. We're very happy to have you with us today.
Hello, this is Assemblymember Autumn Burke representing the 62nd Assembly District. I am proud to join you in celebrating International Women's Day. International Women's Day is an opportunity for us to address systematic injustice against women, not only here in the US, but abroad. And it gives us an opportunity to work towards justice and equality for women and girls across the world. From Katherine Harris, the acclaimed mathematician, to our newly elected Vice President Kamala Harris, women across the world have played and continue to play a role in history. That is why it is so important that we ensure representation and that there is gender equity within our government, our boardrooms, our universities, our healthcare systems, and throughout our communities. Thank you for being with us today. Happy International Women's Day. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Our next speaker is Mayor Trish Kelly. She was originally elected to the Mission Viejo City Council in November 2002. She served as mayor in 2005 to 2008, 2010, and 2014. In December 2014, she retired from the city council due to term limits. After a 2-year return to the private sector, Trish was again elected in November 2016. In 2003, Trish led the city council to establish Mission Viejo as a city of character. She helped to develop a citywide character program, which focuses on a different character quality each month. The program has received awards at state and national levels. Trish serves on the Southern California Association of Governments, Transportation Committee, and the Transportation Corridor Agency's Board of Directors. It's an honor to have you join us today.
Good morning. I'm Trish Kelly. I'm the mayor of the city of Mission Viejo. Mission Viejo is a city in California with a population of nearly 100,000 people. I'm honored to be the mayor of this city, but I'm also, in addition to being the mayor, I am a daughter, I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a friend to many. I've been involved in our schools and in our community for years, and I know that women make a difference in our world. As we consider International Women's Day, I think it's important to recognize a little bit of the history and to know that it's been around for more than a century, beginning in 1911. The purpose of International Women's Day is to focus on the achievements of women globally, but also to call attention to the need for gender equality in government, in the workplace, and in other areas of life. The theme for this year's International Women's Day is important: choose to challenge. And the idea is that from challenge comes change. So I do challenge each of you and women everywhere to continue your work, to make a difference in your community, to work for human rights, and to continue to recognize the accomplishments and the achievements of women here at home and globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kelly. And you're right, from challenge comes change, and we will change the future for women. Our next speaker is Reverend Dr. Pamela J.S. Chalice, and the pastor of Christ Lutheran Church in Long Beach, California, where she and her husband, David Chalice, also reside. Pastor Pam serves on the Southwest California Synod Council of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and the Synod's Executive Committee. She is a member of the Middle East Peace Task Force and as a founding member of People for Palestine Israel Justice, PPIJ. Pam and Dave are the parents of 3 children and grandparents of 6 grandchildren. We're so privileged to have you join us today.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you as we celebrate International Women's Day. I am very grateful and very humbled by this opportunity to share with you today. I am the Reverend Dr. Pamela Joanne Swartz Chalice, and I serve as the pastor of Christ Lutheran Church in Long Beach, California. Our congregation has been the host to many of you who are here today as you join together to work for justice in Iran. As I think of the issues that I have faced as a woman in the United States, inequalities, lewd remarks, being turned down for a position because I am female, being belittled solely on the basis of my gender, etc., I realize that this is nothing in comparison to what women in Iran face every day. The misogyny, detention in prison, torture, and possible execution, all because these brave women dare to stand up against a regime that considers females as lesser created human beings who do not deserve equal rights. Women are not lesser human beings. While it is true that we may not have a male's physique, nonetheless, we are strong emotionally and mentally, and yes, even physically. Women are not, yes, lesser human beings. We are able to join in the struggle for freedom for all people. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that no one is free until all are free. This does not only pertain to race, it also pertains to gender and sexual identity equality. And I pray that someday soon, all women in Iran and around the world will be treated as God intended us to be treated, as partners in caring for this planet, women and men together, victims no longer, but equals. Thank you. And may God bless you in the work that we continue to do for women around the world.
Thank you, Pastor Pam. And your words were beautiful. Victims no more. And also thank you for always opening your doors, the church, to us for our events. Our next speaker and performer is violinist Paran Amiri Naziri. She is a recent graduate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a doctorate of music arts and violin performance under the tutelage of Sohan Park Altino. Paran currently leads a diverse career as a performer, chamber musician, orchestral player, educator, and artist director. An avid chamber musician and artistic leader, Paran is the founder and artistic director of the acclaimed Willie Street Chamber Players. A native of Boston, Massachusetts, she holds a Bachelor of Music degree from the New York, England Conservatory of Music, where she studied with Mr. James Boswell, and a Master of Music degree from University of Nevada, Reno. At the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Paran was a member of Hunt String Quartet and winner of the 2016 concerto competition. At the University of Nevada, Reno, she was a recipient of the Nightingale String Quartet Fellowship. Perron is a member of the Madison Symphony Orchestra's first violin section, regularly performing with Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra, and is a former member of the Reno Philharmonic Reno Chamber Orchestra. Outside of classical music, Perron received a doctoral minor in jazz and provisions and has collaborated with various alternative ensembles and has toured with Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull, Larkin Grimm, and Beat Circus. We're privileged to have you join us today. was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing your talents with us today. Our next speaker is Senator Susan Rubio. Susan Rubio was born in Juarez, Mexico, and is the proud daughter of a former Barcero worker and a housekeeper. She was elected to California State Senate in 2018. Senator Rubio is a member of the Latino Legislative Caucus, Legislative Jewish Council, Los Angeles Caucus, San Gabriel Valley Caucus, and Legislative Women's Caucus. We're very honored to have you join us today.
Hello, I'm California State Senator Susan Rubio. I would like to take a moment to recognize and thank the organizers, the California Women's Society for Democracy in Iran, for inviting me to be part of this commemoration of International Women's Day. As an immigrant and legislator, I know how powerful it can be to be supported and have your voice heard. Unfortunately, women around the world of different nationalities, races, and different faiths are still battling to be heard and represented. Many of them are enduring persecution and harassment for bravely challenging how they are treated. Despite the dangers, women everywhere, including in Iran, have been at the front lines in fighting for equality. In the United States, we have had some inspiring moments. We now have the first female vice president, Kamala Harris. A few years back, we were privileged to see our first U.S. House Representative Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. In California, we are also breaking barriers in significant ways. We have the first female lieutenant governor, Eleni Koulounakis, as well as the first female state Senate leader, Toni Atkins. These are incredible women leading us through incredible challenges. In the California legislature, we recognize how important this work is. In the past few years, we have passed bills to elevate women's voices, put them in positions of power, and requiring women be paid equal to men. The work will continue until we achieve parity. As a legislator, I have learned that in order to be heard, you have to be at the table. So the battle for equality for women around the world will continue, but I know that if we band together and speak with one collective voice, we can get closer to our ultimate goal. Remember, our voices are our power, and we will no longer be silenced. Thank you.
Our voices are our power, and we will no longer be silenced. Couldn't agree more. Thank you for joining us today. Our next speaker is Dr. Hanife Khayeri. She has a PhD in bioengineering from Trinity College, Dublin in Ireland, where she reached the interplay between mechanics and biology during tissue healing. She is a human rights activist that travels to the United Nations for the Human Rights Council sessions in Geneva. There, she works to promote human rights, in particular women's rights, in Iran. As her job, she is employed at the Ministry of Research and Higher Education in Sweden, where she is part of a commission of inquiry with the mandate to propose reform for how the Swedish government governs, organizes, and finances research infrastructures. Thank you for joining us today. It's an honor to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Dear friends, happy International Women's Day. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to this wonderful event. It's a big honor to be here among these excellent line of speakers. I'm a human rights activist, as the presenter said, who lives in Sweden, and I've been active in promoting human rights, and in particular women's rights in Iran for many years. But today I've been asked to tell you a bit about my family history and the reasons that I happily want to contribute to the path that has been laid down by Mrs. Maryam Rajavi and the Iranian movement around her. I come from a family of very strong women who have been fighting against dictatorships all over the world, in China, Africa, and Iran, and since before the Second World War, actually. But my closest inspiration is, of course, my own mother. My mother, Su Fan Chan, was born in Uganda by Chinese parents. She had 4 siblings and was the quietest of the children, my grandmother says. After dictator Idi Amin came to power in Uganda, my mother's family moved to the United Kingdom, where my mother spent her teenage years and finally went to college. She met my father in college, and my father is from Iran. When my parents met, neither of them were political activists. There were just 2 students whose parents had sent them to study at university. But this was in the mid-1970s, which is a period when there was a lot of political debate at the European universities, but also inside Iran. My parents got to know each other, but I also got to know both at the same time, Iranian politics and Iranian activists. It's probably not strange that my father became very passionate about Iranian politics and dreamt of a democratic Iran. I mean, he's an Iranian after all, and it was his homeland. But my mother was equally inspired, if not more. She thought the Iranians were kind-spirited people that deserved their freedoms. She had seen how bravely they had protested in Iran and in the UK. And she had learned from her own mother and grandmother that freedom from tyranny and dictatorship is not bound to country borders. It's for everyone, no matter where they're born or who their parents are. So the day came when she decided to join the Iranian movement and follow the path that was laid down by the People's Mujahideen. She had found her calling. She was inspired by the brave Mujahideen women, and she wanted to be like them and fight alongside them for a free Iran. In many ways, she was a true humanitarian who knew of no national borders and wished that every person could enjoy their basic human rights. My mother was killed by the Iranian regime in 1988 when I was only 4 years old. It hasn't been easy to grow up without my biological mother, but her life choices are the biggest gift that she could give me. I grew up in foster care in Sweden, and I don't know if many of you have been to Sweden, but it's a very comfortable country. Life is easy, and most people here live a privileged life, and so do I. And my mother taught me that privileges and freedoms come with responsibility. If a person is free to choose his or her clothing, education, marry and divorce to whom they want, free to choose his or her religion, and free to political opinion, then this person also has a responsibility to help others who don't enjoy these freedoms, to be a voice of the suppressed and the silenced. In the path of discovering who my mother really was, I discovered Mujahideen and the National Council of Resistance. I am too inspired by them, especially the women. People in this movement are open-hearted and willing to work incredibly hard for the common goal of a free Iran. I also love that everyone simply works to do their very best in this way. To me, it's a privilege to know this movement and work with them. The world that we are living in is unfortunately still full of cruelty, where people in many countries are living under the suppression of dictatorships. To me, the Iranian struggle for democracy stands out as it has such an inspiring and dedicated organized opposition movement. A movement that is based on humanitarian goals, clear goals for gender equality and peace for the region. Also, Iranian women stand out. Women in Iran have fought for democracy for nearly 200 years. There are parts in the Iranian history during the constitutional revolution, for example, where women sacrificed their own rights in order to establish democracy in the country. Iranian women have in the past 100 years been in the forefront of all revolutions. They take a huge responsibility for forwarding their rights and democracy and pay, unfortunately, a very high price. Every generation has its own struggles and fights. For most women listening, you probably know this from your own family history. When your grandmother was allowed to go to school, or when your mother was allowed to pick her career. My family and my mother taught me that we choose our own fights. So I am very glad to see so many people here who have decided to celebrate the struggles and victories of women throughout history today. It's an honor to celebrate with you. Thank you.
Hanifa, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story with us. Your mother's life was indeed a source of inspiration, your story as well. And we're so proud and honored to have you beside us, fighting the good fight, and we shall overcome. Next, we have a short clip from March 8 clip about women in Iran. We will watch that together.
Misogyny in Iran. Under the ruling misogyny in Iran and the gender apartheid that has prevailed, Iranian women are going through one of the most difficult periods in Iran's history. They are severely suppressed, brutally stoned by the street thugs on the bogus charge of malveiling. They savagely attacked by hooligans who splash acid on their faces. They are not treated as equal with men in any field, but are equally executed. They suffer from extreme poverty and forced into women's trafficking. But Iranian women have not surrendered despite the mullah's misogynist and oppressive policies and practices. By relying on a glorious history of struggle and resistance for emancipation, a history not disclosed and introduced to the world as it should have been, they have placed a unique role in liberating their country in the old Persia, in the Constitutional Revolution in 1906, in the anti-monarchical revolution in 1979, and in the present struggle against religious dictatorship. Although after the coming to power of Khomeini and the misogynist rulers in Iran, women could not reap the benefits of anti-monarchic revolution in which they played a serious role. They did not surrender and showed that even if it takes decades to achieve liberation, they will fight for it. And thus, they not only valiantly participated in, but also led many of the uprisings and protests nationwide.
ایران با همه سرمایه داره از گوش مگه نداری؟
سوار نوع
مگه
جی
فوتبال نداری؟ حمایت ایرانی حمایت حمایت حمایت
Iranian women have played an unrivaled role in leading virtually every uprising and protest. They're viewed as vanguards of resistance to liberate Iran from the yoke of the most misogynist and oppressive regime in the world. How is this possible? It is so because Iranian women have found their role models in women in the ranks of the Iranian resistance. That is a generation of women who have assumed the most serious and key leadership roles in the ranks of the Iranian resistance. Over 50% of the NCRI members are women. People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, the main constituent organization in the National Council of Resistance of Iran, is run by a central council which is made up entirely of women. Women can be observed in all fields, playing key leading roles. Today, the resistant units inside Iran bravely dispel the fear of the people and open the way for defiance and rebellion by different segments of the society. Women have joined many resistant units across the country, and this is a path to victory against dictatorship and misogyny. Women's leadership will make that happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of CWSDI, I would like to thank all of the speakers and everyone who participated for their heartfelt and insightful contributions. We heard so many remarks that reminds us of hope and to continue to challenge. The brave women in Iran have been challenging the regime for more than 4 decades. They have been resisting against misogynist tyranny. People are deprived of the most basic necessities, such as water, bread, hygiene, and healthcare. The misogynist regime wants to preserve its rule through repression. However, Iranian women play critical roles in challenging the regime and pushing the situation towards overthrowing the mullahs. The relentless and visionary leadership of Mrs. Rajavi, President-elect of NCRI, and the resistance is vital to freedom for Iran and for Iranian women who pay heavy price for human rights and justice. We will echo Madam Rajavi's request and urge international and human rights organizations to hold regime of Iran accountable for violations of human rights and women's rights. Call on your governments to make economic and political ties with the criminal mullah's regime conditional upon respect for human rights in Iran, especially women and prisoners' rights. In the name of equality movement, I urge all advocates of gender equality across the world to support the brave women of Iran and the Iranian people's uprising for freedom. I will end my remarks by asking you to join me in honoring the brave women all around the world who are choosing to challenge. Let's clap for 1 minute in their honor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on Zoom today to celebrate International Women's Day 2021. I thank you, and